what are we doing here? What are we doing? Listen, the mild criticism that Michael referred to, I accept the majority of the responsibility for. It wasn't until 2001 that there was any in-print representation of the material that you're about to be presented with here. In the absence of guidance, well-intentioned people all over the world who thought they were doing modeling did a number of activities, which I certainly don't recognize as modeling in the NLP sense, but it certainly was an expression of their positive intentions to attempt to follow in the footsteps of a couple of strange people from California who had developed this technology called modeling. So the idea that it is possible to rapidly and unconsciously assimilate complex patterns of genius and then display them in your own behavior shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who's succeeded in surviving infancy. Go watch a child. There's a very strong sense in that, even though I'll present you with relatively technical descriptions of what we're doing, the only damn thing I want you to have when we finish on Sunday is the same thing that you can witness in any pre-verbal child. The ability to assimilate unconsciously, without any understanding during the assimilation process, complex patterns of behavior, language, and others, which are available in the surrounding environment. That's all we're doing here. I'm going to show you here a description, a 5-phase model of modeling itself. This is arbitrary. Every model, of course, could be otherwise. That is, there is no correct solution to the question, what's the model for modeling? This is a very simple version of it. There are nuances and complexities that you'll discover as you go through the experience yourself. But I want to run through this quickly so we have an agreement about where we are operating. That is, what is the surrounding context, which gives some significance to what will otherwise be rather insane activities that you'll be engaging in for these 3 days. A model of modeling. Find a genius. Be careful about this idea about genius. There is a strong tendency in me and other people who do NLP presentations to refer to famous people. Dr. Erickson's a famous person, who's often referred to, who we've actually modeled. And indeed, Milton Erickson was a genius in what he did. However, genius is not confined to well-known celebrities. There is genius in every one of the people in this room. Each of you have things that you do which are brilliant. And you will find, if you open your eyes and ears, in your everyday life, while the people around you may not be geniuses in every context and aspect of their performance, there are things they do which are absolutely superb, which could serve as an invitation to you to apply exactly what we'll be doing in these 3 days. It could be some woman who knows how to run a meeting so well that the conflicts which were inherent in the cliques that began the meeting suddenly dissolve and disappear without any explicit way for that to have happened. How did she do that? It may be an older gentleman who has the ability to establish deep rapport with any child he runs into on the street in a matter of seconds and make a moment of inspiration in that child's life, either through humor or some interesting interaction. Genius comes in big pieces and it comes in very small pieces as well. Don't overlook the little ones. They are excellent targets of opportunity for you to use exactly the set of things we're doing here. So, find a genius. It may be your next door neighbor, it may be your spouse, it may be your child, and it may be someone extremely famous. Go find Bronson and figure out what the hell he's doing. Second phase, after you've succeeded in identifying a genius and gaining access to this genius, in the context in which they're behaving as a genius. This is an important issue, because the second step is the unconscious assimilation of pattern. You don't want to assimilate patterns in all the contexts in which you could have access to such a genius. Let me speak personally and rather precisely about Dr. Erickson. He had 2 houses. The house he lived in with his wife, Betty, and their 9 children, I believe, and a separate house at right angles to the first one, by the way, which I always thought was metaphoric, in which he did his work. And he operated in both of these houses, but in fundamentally different spheres, a professional and a personal sphere. Although I had some difficulty noticing when he stopped running the patterns, even in the personal sphere. He did insist there was a difference. Sometimes I could find the difference and sometimes not. But what was clear to me was I wanted this man's absolute patterns of genius in his ability to communicate directly with the unconscious of his patients and to induce radical movements at the level of unconscious functioning in his patients to overcome what are classically known as medical conditions or psychological, psychiatric conditions. He was indeed a genius in this sense. On the other hand, I had no interest and was quite precise about not being interested in assimilating the patterns he had in his family life. He had a certain style with his children. He had a certain style in his relationship with his wife, Betty, which I personally didn't find attractive in some aspects. In other aspects, they were quite nice. But it's important to segment the contexts. If you're going to put yourself in a posture of unconsciously assimilating, as you did with your parents, the patterns which they present, make sure that you do this only in contexts where there are patterns of genius available, so you don't assimilate stuff which would not be useful for you in any sense. Point understood?